out a whole bunch of stuff that Diane has for us. She's also going to, they make fun of me, Diane, that I'm scared about these wars that can come to New York City that will, affect America. No, America will never be attacked. And we're going to listen to Diane, who really knows this stuff, who understands not only foreign politics, but she's one of us New York guys. You're from Rockland County, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Wow, it took you a long time to get here, huh?
Yeah.
I go visit the jails every 2 weeks, and I pass by. I'm stopping by for lunch next week. Be ready for me. You got to find me a kosher place out there.
Muncie, we got Muncie.
Muncie, you know where Muncie is.
Muncie,
yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
So
I
Diane
got a
knows.
tip on the best bakery, but I have to ask them again.
It's okay.
Spring Valley, remember we got Spring Valley also.
Yeah.
We got it. Don't worry about it. We're good to go. No, if not, I'll Google. Today we Google, no?
Yes, we can Google. We can do Yelp even. Do Yelp.
No, I don't like Yelp. Okay, so we're ready to rock and roll, but we're going to start my show first with a little bit of a quote and a joke. And I want to tell you this quote. And I think it's an important quote that I saw. And this is what I really thought of for Diane today. It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. We all cry that we're in dark times. Things are going bad. People are leaving New York City. It's only going to get worse. We're going to find, here you are. Here is the one that we're looking for. Diane, we're going to hold you responsible. I'm looking. It's dark right now, Diane. Please find the light. Take us out. I'm serious. I really believe that I'm never going to leave New York City. I've been fighting for this city for 59 years. I've been, as a kid growing up, fighting through the bad times and the good times. And I'm never leaving my neighbors. And I know that you guys think that it's time to run, but I'm never running. This is my home. I've worked hard to build it. And I'm happy that we found somebody like Diane that will lead us through this beautiful century, because I believe we're in a great time, and we should not allow people to destroy it and ruin it for us. Anyways, here's my little joke. I know nobody laughs, and I don't care. My son, Yaakov, when he was little, he left the house to meet his friends. And he didn't ask his mother, Linda. He didn't ask. And when he came home, Linda wasn't happy. And my wife is a tough witch. I mean, I love her, but she's a tough woman. And she goes over to Yaakov. Why? I wanted to go to the park. Why did you, when you went to the park with your friends, why didn't you come ask me first? And Yaakov replies, because I didn't want to go with you. I only want to go with the friends. Okay, it wasn't that great. But here's a funny joke that I heard, a real joke. Usually I make fun of my family. But this week, somebody actually told me a funny joke, and I really thought it was funny, and I want to bring it up.
Well, let us know, Heshy, please.
There's a rabbi and a politician, not Diane. They go on to the heavenly court. Time is up, and they go before the heavenly court, and they both pass, and they go into heaven. And the angel comes to them and says, "Come, follow me. I'm going to show you where you're going to stay." And one of them, he takes the rabbi, he takes him to a nice room with a little bed, a chair, a table, and his books, and he says, "This is where you're going to be." And the politician, got a little nervous. So this is where I'm going to also get a place, And he walks, he says, "No, you follow me." And he takes the politician and he walks him a block away and he says, "Look, this is for you, a big mansion, servants, food, everything you can think of." So the politician, looks a little funny. He says, "Angel, I'm not, I don't want to be, ungrateful, but why do I get this big, beautiful place and the rabbi gets this small little room?" He says, "Listen, you're a special guest. We never have politicians that ever made it to heaven. You're the first." Anyways, that was my joke.
So Kalman's not going to heaven.
Kalman is not going to heaven. That's my competitor, by the way. That's my competitor. We have an interesting show. We're going to ask Dan a couple of questions, and we're going to, by the way, we want to welcome all of our listeners from, go ahead. 620
WSNR. It's my favorite one, by the way.
It is my favorite station. It's a local station. We got
1640 WJPR, and can never forget 93.5 FM WVIP, just like KRP in Cincinnati.
That's right. And of course, we're on YouTube and Facebook and
Yes.
Instagram and whatever other little social media it is. And I have all those TikTok. They've been clicking in lately, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Got a lot of fans on
How
that.
you doing to everybody out there, by the way?
Yes, everybody. So, Diane, we want to ask you a simple, straight-out question, okay? What are you going to do for us? Help. I mean, we have budgetary problems. We have people impeaching our president and our ex-president. I mean, they're just doing whatever they want, and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars when we have the homeless issue. I mean, you were hanging out in the city today.
Yes.
I mean, you're going to be our senator. You got to do something about that. We have, what I heard now is I made a mistake with the numbers. It's not 72,000 homeless. We have 92,000
Yeah, I saw
homeless.
93,000. Yep,
It's crazy, Diane. I mean, migrants. And no, I call them
93,000
homeless
migrants.
because
Right.
we have 80,000 of our own homeless, and
Correct.
now you're putting another 92,000 in the streets. Where are you going to give us this money? I hope you find this money for us.
Well, here's the thing. I think you have to take a step back and look at the big picture, which is we are going through tectonic shifts. What's happening right now is bigger than when communism went bankrupt. It's bigger than the fall of the Berlin Wall. It's a criminal system which has hijacked the United States. You could go back to 1971 when Nixon decoupled the dollar from the gold reserve system. So it's a system based on money per se, not physical production. And you could say it's like a 300-pound tick on a 10-pound chihuahua. So the dog is not going to be around much longer. And in effect, we're the dog. Think about what you pay to park at a meter. I was blown away I parked at a parking meter, and it was the same amount as parking in a garage. It was $36.
But you can forget about the meters. You're looking at they're fining the city of New York for the congestion pricing. When you're going to come visit us from now on, you're going to
New Jersey suing New York
You're
now,
going to sue,
basically.
and I
So
hear
is Staten Island.
Staten Island wants to secede from us. I mean,
Well, they always want to secede.
But when Diane comes to visit me now, you're going to be paying me $23 to come see me, $23 to go back. Plus, you're going to pay for the battery tunnel. You might as well not even come in and just give me your whole paycheck before you start.
No, exactly. So this.
By the way, Dan, what is your website? Because I know that everybody needs donations, and I know it. It's SareForSenate.com. Guys, she does need help. We all need help. This is the one you want to help. So it's SareForSenate.com.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And Diane Sare on Twitter as well, correct?
Yes.
Twitter. We have
Diane
12,000
Sare on
followers
Twitter.
on Twitter, so make sure
Great.
we follow.
We're going to need a lot of money. And Diane, do we have the money? Do you think we can beat him?
We don't have the money right now. We don't have the money right now. However, I think we're in a revolutionary moment, and I'm not starting from zero since I ran the campaign against Schumer in 2022. And as you know, I was the only independent candidate in a statewide race to even get on the ballot, because the state tripled the signature requirement.
Used to be 15,000 signatures, and it became 45,000.
How many did you get?
66,000 she got.
66,000.
That's serious signature. Now
It's serious.
Did he try to fight you on the signatures?
No, what he did was he refused to debate me.
Of course.
And I'll tell you a funny story.
And Christian Gillibrand?
We'll see when we get there. I have to tell you something very funny about Schumer, because I obviously was totally on his mind.
I hate Schumer, you know that.
And he came from this district, actually. This was a
I
district
know,
he
I
physically
know. Please
came
don't
from.
bring that up
I
again.
wanted to remind you,
I
Heshy, to
hate
fire you
you.
up. I know you do, Heshy, but that's why we have
You'll
Diane
like
to be your
this
senator.
story.
Okay.
So I saw he's very hard to find, because you may know my friend Jose Vega, who disrupted AOC's meeting and his
Right, yeah.
Well, so Schumer's hard to find, and you usually have to pay to go hear him. So I saw he was going to be speaking at a breakfast event. $179. They didn't even give you eggs. They didn't give you
Sounds like the one you went to a couple months ago.
So, or fruit. It was like a piece of shriveled up bread and something. At any rate, I saw he was going to be speaking, so I went on Amazon and I ordered the smallest bullhorn I could find, because I've confronted him before and I knew he would have a microphone and I wouldn't. So I found a bullhorn that I could fit in a large purse. And I went to the meeting, and the security is so lax. I guess they figured if you're going to pay that kind of money, you're not going to disrupt. So I got in there with my bullhorn. I had one scary moment when I was trying to adjust it, and the batteries fell out and rolled all over the place. But I got it. And so he began saying whatever he was saying. And I said, "Good morning." And he looks up, and the whole room is staring at me. And I said, I'm here because you refused to debate me. And he said, "That's Diane Sare." I mean, it was like right on his mind. "That's Diane Sare. She ran on the LaRouche line." And I was able to get out the fact that both I and, if you know the name, Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector, we were put on this kill list by the Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation. It's a list where if once you're dead, they put liquidated in red across your face. And Schumer and Gillibrand have been authorizing the funding. They're paying the payroll for the people who make this list. So I had sent them letters and delivered them by hand to their office saying, I want an answer. Are we going to audit the money going to Ukraine? Are you paying to suppress freedom of speech? Scott Ritter actually wrote a very strong letter saying Diane Sare is running against Schumer. This is a very low tactic if you think you're going to silence your opponent by putting her on a kill list. He never responded. And because they were so shocked that I was at the meeting with my bullhorn, I was able to actually get the entire briefing out to the whole breakfast crew there. And people at the other table were saying, well, isn't this an interesting way to start?
Well, one thing I've learned that every person that's in office, that holds office, whether it's Schumer or even Heshy's opponent, you may be running on whatever political party line, they know who you are. And all they do is they think about is their opponent, because they think more about that than helping their constituents. I can tell you that.
Diane, Diane, we spend trillions of dollars in this country. You're going to be in the Senate. I mean, you are in charge of the budget in some way. I mean, I like our foreign policies. I like our foreign friends, but you're throwing away trillions of dollars, and you're not taking care of our hungry. You see the homeless on the streets. You see people struggling every week. You're paying for people to have wars in other countries, and you're giving them money so, Ukraine, like you said, might just use a nuclear weapon, or they might use a nuclear weapon, and this world is going to go crazy. I mean, you got to stop this. What are you going to do? What's your plan? I mean, I'm nervous.
Well, we first of all have to stop arming Ukraine.
I agree.
We have to force them to the negotiating table. You know that
Will we be
Putin
able to force Russia to the negotiating?
Yes, they're open. In fact, you might recall in 2022, Erdogan was holding talks in Turkey, and Putin actually produced at a meeting when 7 African leaders, or people representing 7 African states, met with both Putin and Zelensky, and Putin showed that they had gotten as far as initialing the documents, which was Crimea would be with Russia, Ukraine would be neutral, and Russia had begun withdrawing its troops.
Wow.
And Boris Johnson flew over there, I always say on a jumbo jet to accommodate his fat ego, and sabotaged it.
So what's the reason? Why would they do this?
Well, because of what I was saying before, that their financial system is disintegrating and they're looking for more sources to loot. And we know from Dick Cheney and the so-called neocons, when the Berlin Wall came down, they said the U.S. has to be the global hegemon. No nation can be more powerful, more developed than we are. Now, that's a horrible position to begin with. But if you say everyone's got to be worse off than we are, and then you destroy yourself, so you create, if they're going to be worse than we are with our infrastructure crumbling and millions of homeless people and people on drugs, you're consigning the world to total hell.
Yeah. Are we going to rebuild Ukraine if the war ends tomorrow? I'm sure we will.
Yeah, like we rebuilt Afghanistan, you mean?
I had a question, because going back on what Heshy said, and this will kind of tie into some things you've advocated for throughout, your career as an activist and other things. Is obviously our debt is like $30 trillion. Maybe it's more than that now.
Right.
And obviously you going into the Senate, especially how the numbers are, and you'd obviously be somebody that would go out and have a significant vote and a significant say. So what do you think, because you have a background, obviously, as sort of a classical economist, if I'm not mistaken, what do you think we should do in order to eventually rein in our debt? And
well, we're going to have to
do it, right?
We're going to have to stop bailing out mega speculators. We're going to have to reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act, the separation of the banks, and doing that would require going through the books of the banks.
Now, for the audience out there, that was done during Clinton's last couple of years as president, the Glass-Steagall
repeal.
Act? Yeah.
Correct.
So talk about that.
Alan
also.
Greenspan, Robert Rubin, and Jeffrey Epstein was smack in the middle of it. Jeffrey Epstein was one of the key forces organizing for the repeal of Glass-Steagall. And
Glass-Steagall, again, it takes away the power from the bank?
it splits the banks based on function, so that because what happened in 2008 was that the banks that used to be your savings and loan banks where you kept your money were forced to swallow things like Countrywide or Lehman Brothers.
Fannie Mae and
Right, stuff that was largely based on speculation. With Glass-Steagall, the American taxpayers would never be on the hook for someone's gambling debt. They couldn't use your savings account or your pension fund as collateral for their garbage. Right. So right now, without Glass-Steagall, it means that the gamblers can do whatever they want. It's like going to a gambling casino. You lose everything, but you have a money-back guarantee.
Well, we have to bail them out because the money is really belonging to the people that they took the money from. We can't let them.
Well, no, because what they do is they leverage it. So they may gamble on 100 times what they're actually holding.
And they can't do that.
No, and so see if that goes under, no one dies. But if everyone loses their pension fund and they get foreclosed on, and the local sewage treatment plant goes bankrupt, people will die.
Sure.
So when you put Glass-Steagall in place, in effect, you're saying, and this is what they did under FDR in the 4-day bank holiday, they went through the books of all the banks. And they said, well, this is legitimate. This is debt. We're going to restructure. We're going to repay it. Oh, this is crap. We're not going to honor that. We're not going to pay it. So the effect would be you'd have a bunch of billionaires who probably would be cut down to merely being millionaires.
So you're
That'd
ready
be
to
rough.
You're ready to roll up your sleeves and fight this Senate and
I
try
am.
to make. I mean, you have.
so you think then, based off that, with the $30 trillion in debt, and I'm sure it'll be even higher by the time, let's see, you get into
No,
the
you'd
Senate.
have to write off a bunch of it because it's based on garbage. Also, why do we need $1 trillion? We have 800 military bases around the world. Now, we're talking about how everyone's trying to invade us. We're the ones with 800 military bases all over the world that we are peopling and using to cause mischief all over the place.
Like we have in Germany, we have bases. Why do we need in Germany anymore? Why do we need in other countries that are our friends and have their own power? I understand, like Middle East or stuff like that, or where there's danger. But again, if European countries, we shouldn't even have them. I guess we need them. I guess to fly over, have local faster routes. I guess.
Well, I mean, you'll love this. We told Russia that we had to put ABM systems, supposedly defense
Right.
systems, right on their border because of Iran. Now, maybe no one ever looked at a map, but the last I checked, Iran is not really that close to
Right.
Poland. I mean,
I was curious because you would obviously be a third-party candidate that gets into the Senate, and there's very few in New York, let alone historically, that have been elected. So you would be in a unique position, I think, that you would be able to maybe work with both parties on different things. So maybe talk about that when you get into the Senate, because obviously the way it is structured right now, it's 49-49 with two
Right.
independents who caucus with the Democrats. But let's say you get into the U.S. Senate, you would be that true independent. So how would you be able to want some of the things that you would like to enact? How would you be able to get that done with both parties?
well, it would certainly give me a certain amount of freedom. And also,
Sure.
if it's close between the parties, then I would be this most sought-after person.
You would essentially be what we had for a while in the state Senate with our state senator here for a brief period. He had used his vote at times to maybe, do things he thought. So you would be able to then, I think, be in a position that you feel, because right now, I think if you look at the way the United States Senate elections are forecasted next year, it's probably going to be another real close one. So I think you would be able to leverage some of your abilities to work with both
I
parties.
disagree with you, Tom. I think I know we didn't have the Republican wave. And I think the people around the country with all the complaints and everybody crying and screaming, I believe it's going to come. I mean, I still believe in Trump. I don't know about you, Diane, but I like the man.
Well, even if Diane gets in there, there's a point that if it's like 51-49 or 50-50, she would have to
decide and be.
But
You
I
wanna
want
talk
to
about that?
actually say something about the red wave, because sure, the party hacks squandered the potential in part,
Yeah.
but there is massive election fraud. I think there was a red wave, frankly, but no one knew about it.
Tell us why.
Well, just take the situation in New York, and I don't know if you're familiar with the work of New York Citizens Audit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they just did publicly available data, and they discovered that in 2020, the Secretary of State certified 338,000 more votes than voters who voted.
How could that be?
Well, what they have discovered is the New York voter rolls have at least 2 million illegal fake voter ID numbers, which have voted on occasion in the elections. And they therefore have the ability, if you even just take the smaller figure, the 338,000, that's about 4% of the vote, but it was not divided uniformly. Like you could go county by county and see the discrepancy, how many extra votes were counted than voters who voted.
You see what you're saying, Diane? We're in the 21st century. We still have voting machines that break. We have voter fraud. I mean, come on, you guys are spending trillions of dollars. Not you, but the Senate will be spending it. Why? I mean, I know if my internet goes down for 8 minutes, we have a mental breakdown attack. Okay, I'd be out of business. You're telling me that we can have machines and voter fraud and all this stuff going on in the 21st century, and we can't organize voting across this country properly once and for all.
Right, because they also control the news media.
Yeah, we know.
And when you steal an election and then you control the media, people say, oh, well, I guess really maybe that many people didn't support Donald Trump. I mean, forget the fact that you saw the Trump stadiums filled with 30,000 people and 20,000 outside, and the Joe Biden car caravan had 12 people, and 2 of them were in wheelchairs. And, you know, forget that you saw that, and nothing against people in wheelchairs, but we should not expect them to be doing the exerting physical work of being a representative.
I already got your opinion, but I want to ask you, what do you think about Joe Biden and his son and the Hunter Biden?
It's a crime syndicate, and this thing that we both experienced going down to the Roosevelt Hotel. This is a massive criminal operation.
Crazy.
And it is really vicious when you start using human beings for a political agenda and a profit, which is what they are doing with these people. And it's the cartels. I happened to watch an interview that Bobby Kennedy Jr. did with Jimmy Dore, because Kennedy went down to the border, and he said, I actually had to stay there for 3 days to figure out what was going on. He talked about the demoralization of the border agents. Apparently 9 of them have committed suicide in the last couple of years, that they will flood an open area with actual migrants who don't have criminal records to distract from when the criminals are going through in another area, the traffickers. And he said, you know, I saw people down there from 116 nations. This is not people coming up from El Salvador or Nicaragua or even from Haiti flying. This is people. And so and he said they pay an exorbitant amount to these cartels. And somehow the cartels have airplanes and buses and
the drugs flooding in. It's just crazy.
And
you
they
have
get them
something
visas.
Coming up on August 6th for the audience out there. You want to talk about that for those that are
I
out
do, and it's really urgent and related to this. August 6th, of course, as you know, is the 78th anniversary of the dropping of the nuclear bomb on Hiroshima.
there? I just saw Oppenheimer, so.
Okay, and 3 days later on
begging me to
Nagasaki.
go. He keeps begging me to go to that movie.
Well,
I'm not
admittedly, I
going.
think there's a few people that might know. I actually saw Barbie, so I'd rather see. I saw Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was better than Barbie.
Right,
Just
okay.
Side point,
I
though.
don't
My
think-
granddaughter wants me to go. I said no.
Not after what I saw, but that's another time
good.
for a different show. But talk about August 6th for us.
Well, so 78 years ago, we dropped not 1 but 2 nuclear bombs on Japan.
While they were retreating, while we knew the war was going to be over.
They were already negotiating the terms of surrender through the Vatican. So they were going to surrender, and we dropped 2 bombs killing 220,000 people. Why? Not merely people say, oh, just to threaten the Soviet Union, but to establish, if you know the name Bertrand Russell or other people who believed in world government, how do you have a world government? You have to have somebody who can terrorize everybody into submission. Well, dropping a nuclear bomb and burning people's skin off and having their shadows left on the sidewalk is pretty scary.
Yeah.
So this unleashed a whole new horrible era. And what Douglas MacArthur said on the battleship Missouri when the Japanese surrendered is he said, we have had our last chance. He said, if we don't find another way to resolve conflicts, Armageddon will be at our door.
Too bad. I know.
Yeah.
I know. And you know what? I am a little fearful, but again, you have this organization called the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, another Nazi organization that thinks they're going to control us. But I think that the people are getting smarter. I think we will rise up. Hopefully people believe in our Constitution and our rights, the Fourth Amendment. I keep preaching every week. You have your rights. You have your amendments. You have your Constitution. Guys, don't let them take it away from us. We do have fighters like Diane, and we're going to need to continue to fight. I'm going to take a little second break, Dan. Today I went to a place called Corner Cafe, Tom. It's not far from my house.
Okay.
They're located, by the way, at 2 Ditmas Avenue. Their phone number is 718-435-2223. I asked for a free cookie. They wouldn't give me one.
Why not?
Because it costs money.
But it was free, it's supposed to be.
But he gave Linda a Danish.
Well, Linda.
But I wanted the cookie.
But maybe
Don't make excuses, Tom. You're fired. Anyways, don't forget, everybody, Corner Cafe, located at 2 Ditmas Avenue. Wonderful place. And I forgot to shout out to my beautiful granddaughter, Mira Nava.
That's my favorite part of the show when you
That's
say
right.
Mira Nava.
That's right, Mira Nava. It's one of the names their kids made up. And Layla Tamar, and my beautiful grandson, my first grandson, Yeshua. And, of course, my favorite sergeant, Sergeant Peter. You are the best. You know who you are. And Ellie, don't forget, I didn't forget about you. And I always have you my praise, and I always will take care of you. Diane, let's talk about the police and crime.
Good.
I mean,
I want to
go
finish
ahead.
though on
Go ahead.
August
Yes.
6th, which is this Sunday at 1:00 p.m. People should come out. It's Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, right across the street from the UN, 47th and 1st Avenue. Scott Ritter is going to be speaking there. Garland Nixon, actually a leader of the Ghanaian American League for Freedom. Yes.
Okay.
A candidate for president of Haiti. We're bringing in the global majority, as I call them, and then leaders of the People's Party, Libertarian Party, a Republican presidential candidate. What we're demonstrating is that people are capable of putting aside, and I don't mean minor differences, major differences, to say, you know what, our differences are important, but if we're annihilated, it won't matter. So we're going to come together and stop nuclear war.
So when is this again?
Sunday, 1:00.
Sunday, 1:00 by the UN on 47th and 1st Avenue. Or
Yes.
York. Is it First or York?
First.
First Avenue. Guys, come out. And you'll get to meet Diane as well. That's very good. Diane, police, crime. I mean, today, it's another day. I mean, it's nothing new in New York City, and I know you, but I'm watching videos of people walking into stores, Tom, breaking stuff, running out with bags, nobody stopping
I was
them.
in Walgreens in Union Square last week, and they have everything gated, closed and locked. Yeah, laundry
Right.
detergent.
And they're breaking it.
Yep.
They're coming in there with fire. And today I saw a video of them walking into a store, nobody stopping them, robbing, pushing. You're my senator in New York. I understand the rest of the country has the issues, but we need more police protection. We can't defund the police unless you want to defund them.
No, and I understand that there was actually a rather dramatic reduction of crime in the subways once they sent more police there. It's true, but it's also frankly not fair to dump an insane, degenerate society on the law enforcement. They're like your last line. New York State once had 93,000 inpatient psychiatric beds. 93,000. You know how many we have now?
100.
Close, 8,700.
Wow.
We had a reduction of over 90% of the mental hospital beds. And you know what? I was surprised to learn, but I just finished reading a book by Dr. Homer Venters, who was the medical commissioner for New York City jails, called Life and Death at Rikers Island. They did this nationally. So we shut down, and then you know what happened to the mental patients? They all went to Washington and got into the Congress.
We got a few of them locally representing us, right?
we got a lot of them.
A few of them. Nadler, Jeffries, Goldman, Clark. Yeah.
Kalman?
He's counsel though. Let's not put him up there just yet, Heshy. Let's not give him ideas. We know he's listening right now.
I know.
So
But you know what? I agree with you. You know, just like I was telling him, and my numbers have gone up just in my community. I'm not talking about Rockland County in New York State. Just in my community, just alone, right now, we're over 110 suicides. And I'm not talking guys like me. I'm talking young kids. We have mental health issues. Our ex-mayor and his wife stole lots of money or mismanaged it.
Yes.
But mental health is a serious problem in this country, and we don't pay attention to it. And I don't believe the Senate or the Congress even care about such things like that. And that's where the money should be going instead of Ukraine or whatever place like that. I do believe you should send money to foreign countries. But again, you guys are not looking over the budget, and we're making, and the same thing we have in New York City. We are just mismanaging our money. There's no oversight on so many of our government agencies. And that's one of the things that I want to do. Even though yesterday, when I met our councilmen and congressmen and councilmen and
Assembly member, yep.
right on the street, they told me simple. You know what they told me? Even if you vote no, there's nothing you could do about it. This is the way it is. We voted no. I said, you voted no, and I was told it to my councilman, straight out, my competitor and the assemblyman. I said, you got up the day before. You have bills coming there that you can fight. Me and him actually fought a bill to stop all leasing companies, and we fought months and months in advance, and we stopped it. You can't wake up the day before and say, I vote no. He says, well, I voted no. You should see my record. Your record means nothing if it doesn't help the people. And he says, you're never going to make a change, and too bad on you, and this is the way it's going to be. Diane, is that true?
No, it doesn't have to be that way.
Good.
But people have been much too passive, and
A lot of apathy, a lot of voter apathy.
there
out there
is,
these
and we
days.
have to be in the streets. That's why we're having the rally. If you're going to
gonna
have
be
this
there.
amount of great, if you're going to have this amount of election fraud, then that's why your congressman isn't scared of you. They used to hold town meetings, and if you had a bunch of people show up with a particular viewpoint, usually the congressman would listen. They might even change their
Yep.
policy. They might even change the law. Now they're like, oh,
They don't want to because they don't want to face the voters. It used to be a time like we had a state
Mm-hmm.
senator in a nearby area. He used to always do town halls. He would
Right.
do them, people would go to him, but now it's a different point. But, you know, kind of piggybacking off that, I mean, you've obviously run before. You've had multiple campaigns. I mean, what have you learned from your prior campaigns that's going to help you in this race coming up to make us our next United States Senator?
That's a very good question. One thing is to not chase votes. And Lyndon LaRouche, who I worked with, who first asked me to run for Congress, he said that all the time. He said, don't chase votes. Don't try to appeal to, don't make up things. Tell the truth.
Always.
Because what we really need is leadership.
But we don't care. We don't like you. People don't want to hear the truth. They just don't want to hear it.
Well, I think they do. But again, it's the media. It creates this where people become afraid to say what they really think because the media is telling them all their neighbors believe X. I mean, remember, I got 66,000 signatures to get on the ballot, but people coming up to my campaign tables would look around and say, I'm the only person in town who supports you. But everybody in their town supported me, but they didn't dare to discuss it in public. So we've got this kind of cultural dynamic.
Larry Sharp always calls it the duopoly between the two parties. What they try to do is basically like put everybody in a box and say, this is where you are, this is where they are. And somebody like yourself who might have ideas maybe that don't necessarily in a box,
Right.
but you might be for the general person, somebody that could advocate for things that might improve their life. So kind of going off that, I mean, what are some of the things you'd like to do in a positive way to benefit the people of this state?
Well, apparently, I've heard the figure used that investment in actual hard infrastructure, physical infrastructure, generates a return of about 6 to 1.
Okay.
When we went to the moon, we got $10 to $14 for every dollar we spent. And the state of New York has 157 companies that have been involved in the space program that are feeders to that. They could become mass employers. High-speed rail, it's embarrassing. Our rail situation is a horror. How many people could be employed?
Well, what do we care, Dan? I mean, AOC threw Amazon out of here and threw away, 25,000 jobs for all the trickle jobs. I mean, we don't want new companies to come in. You're telling me that we have the opportunity. We're throwing them out. Your congresswoman actually told them, get out. Are we crazy?
Well, yes. And then,
Thank you, Dan.
but let me just say one other thing, which I didn't mention discussing, but I
Sure.
have to tell you, the pot dispensaries, I am vehemently opposed to
Oh,
them.
please, thank you.
And
can't.
again, it's a complete racket, and they're very dangerous, and drug addiction is skyrocketing because of them, as are children visiting the emergency room,
Yeah.
because what they sell
You
in
see,
there.
Tom? Thank you, thank you. Every week I preach this. Please get rid of my pot. Thank you, please, please. I beg you. I mean, you want to grow your plant at home. You want to smoke it in your house. I got you. Selling it to my kids, selling it to a 20-year-old. They think that they can smoke and live a normal life the next day. It doesn't work like that. And I love you. Please, please, please stop this.
And there's lots of studies, and especially the new marijuana, which is much, much more potent.
Yeah.
And it causes, I think there's something like 40% of people who use it get like mild paranoia or whatever. Of that cohort, people who take the new super high THC have psychotic episodes, schizophrenia, suicide, bizarre crime. There's a,
Yeah,
it's,
we know people on marijuana that just lost. Dan, don't get angry at the next question on me.
Okay.
You're a woman, and thank God that I believe
and I
it.
know that, and I
Okay.
actually believe
You sure?
I have
Because
been since birth. Yeah.
Because you could change your gender. You could.
Thanks for confirming.
Right, because today we're not sure. Other
The
male
Barbie
gen-
movie was an example
Right,
of that.
there is only two genders, and that's the way I want it to be. But Diane, as a woman, and I know there's a lot of women in the Senate, do you believe that you will be pushed around, or does it make a difference?
I will not be pushed around.
Okay.
As I mentioned, the name LaRouche, he's probably the most controversial politician, even after Donald Trump, who was getting close there. And we went through a ringer. He was indicted after working with Ronald Reagan on the Strategic Defense Initiative, and he was indicted by Robert Mueller, of all people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was called every name in the book that you can imagine, and people got terrified. Oh, I can't say this. I can't associate with you. And so I've been associated with a name which is unmentionable, that is LaRouche, for 35 years, and I'm not going to back down. At a certain point, people have to get to be afraid of the right thing. We could lose everything. People are afraid of their reputation, their job, if my friend won't like me, this or that. You know what? If you're dead, none of those things matter.
Right.
What are some of the committees you'd like to go on in the Senate? I think that's an important one, especially if you get in there with a closely divided body. What committees would you want to serve on here?
Foreign policy.
I love you on the budget.
Yes, Ways and Means.
Yeah.
I mean,
We need you.
And that was
Jill-
Daniel Patrick Moynihan's committee years back.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
He was a lion in the Senate. When we had him, it was a different time, but
Right.
compared to the two,
Yeah,
we have now.
judiciary.
Oh, please. Yeah.
and
You
that
know.
goes back on your knowledge of the Constitution, correct?
Yes, and reading Hamilton a lot. And the Federalist Papers, which I'm a little rusty on, but I have actually read the Federalist Papers. I've read Alexander Hamilton's papers on the subject of manufacturing, the constitutionality of a national bank, the question of public credit.
Now you understand. We need to. What is your opinion on term limits? I believe that the Senate and the Congress should have term limits.
It's very funny you asked that, because I used to oppose it, but
Why?
because it's not in the Constitution, and you would hope that people would vote.
I got that.
But the problem now, and I actually signed one of those pledges to support term limits in my last election, because the money is disgustingly corrupt.
Correct.
And people are not leaving, and the founding fathers obviously did not intend that. That's why the term in the House is 2 years and the Senate is 6. I don't know if I agree with what the limits they're saying. I mean, I think the Senate, maybe 2 terms should be enough. That's 12 years, 2
Yeah.
terms.
Yeah, because I think
And
that
the House-
the crop of politicians that represent us, whether it's in New York or nationally, they're in there too long. I mean, Gerald Nadler's been there 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Charlie Rangel was here for 50 years.
What
I
about
mean,
Schumer? Schumer just doesn't
He was
wanna
in the
leave.
Assembly. He was in
Right.
Congress. He was in the Senate. I mean, you know, everybody. And to me, it's a Democrat and a Republican thing. These people
Yes.
get in there. You know, like my Congress member was an Assemblywoman. She's been in Congress, and you can go down the line. These people, what they do is they basically make it like their career. When, like you said, the founding fathers inherited. You're supposed to go out, serve the community for a couple years,
Right.
help out. Now they've made it where they have constituent offices, they have little positions here, patronage position there, and it shouldn't be that way. It really should be you go out there, do the people's business for a few years, and then move on and give somebody else a chance. And that's what democracy was supposed to be. But the way things are right now in this country, it's a Democrat and a Republican problem.
Yeah, both. And it is a swamp. What is a swamp? It's water that doesn't move. It sits there stagnant, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's what you...
That's a good answer.
It doesn't, whether it's Chuck Schumer or Mitch McConnell,
Right.
it's the same
I
thing.
know.
It's the same thing.
I don't know what to do. I'll be honest with you. I do go over the politics of the country, and I do look into it, and I do scream and holler at all.
We
those
hear it all the
people.
time Wednesday nights,
I
9
got
o'clock.
you. But again, I am still very fervent about my city and my state. But I'm lost, and I need a senator that will come here and help us with our infrastructure. I need a senator that will, smooth us and care about us and just not pop in whenever they're in the mood to go to $179 breakfast to collect for them, something. This is what Schumer, when I bumped into Schumer a couple of weeks ago or months ago, I screamed at him. I called him a name. Everybody says, oh, you can't disrespect him. We're going to lose funding. What funding? The man has to give us
I'm
the funding.
so glad to hear you say that. That is the biggest problem. I went to Rochester when I was running against Schumer, and they've had massively skyrocketing violence and homeless. And I wanted
Yes,
to
that was
visit-
Mayor Warren up there.
Yeah, I wanted to visit a homeless program. So I get there, and the assistant comes out and says, "Oh, we're sorry, we can't meet with you." And I said, "Why is that? You're educating me. I'm not coming here to tell you something. I want to learn what the situation is. I'm running for office." And they said, "No, we looked up who you are." I said, "What do you mean?"
Wow.
"You're running against Schumer."
And this is why you need to go to SareForSenate.com.
Right.
And
Sare
Diane
for
Sare
Senate.
on Twitter as well.
Right.
Make sure you give her a follow and support her candidacy here. And I was curious because we have 62 counties here in the state of New York, and obviously Schumer had always said, well, I go to every county every year, but have you had, other than obviously Brooklyn, because we love Kings County here,
Right.
but is there a favorite county of yours or a place that you've gotten to visit so far in the state of New York?
I love the state. I really, really do. I grew up in Maine.
Okay.
And I just, it reminds me where I am now, particularly upstate near Harriman State Park.
Sure.
I lived in the West Village for about a year, a little less.
Okay.
Yeah, that was rough, especially when they moved all the restaurants on the streets and then you spent 3 hours looking for parking.
That's another thing we got to get rid of. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it's still there, and we don't even need them. And
I think the city council just, they're voting to permanently make outdoor dining. All that
I
stuff
know
now.
that.
Well, because
crazy.
they want to get rid of cars.
Yep.
Right? They want to
Just
get
like
rid of
going
cars.
back to the congestion pricing that,
Correct.
we had a guy on here last week and he talked about this whole thing with the bike lanes and the congestion pricing. It's only making things
You
worse.
should talk to the truckers. You'd think the people who lived in Manhattan didn't need to eat, or maybe they don't know that the food comes in on a truck. I was on a conference call with truckers, and they are beside themselves. There is nowhere to park and unload.
Right.
In New York, there's nowhere. They're getting tickets all the time. They're
Tickets.
shutting down their rest areas. People are lucky if they can have food. Maybe they think they're going to print it on a 3D plastic printer.
You hear that, Heshy? You hear that?
I hear. I'm not happy.
I could see.
Diane, the Green New Deal. I have a problem in New York City because my job forces me on all new projects to do green, which is a waste. And when we put the green up, I'll be honest with you, once we get approved and we do it, we take it off. I don't understand the Green New Deal. I mean, I got you. You want to save the environment, but I see people in the Senate and the Congress saying it's not true.
The best way to save the environment is to stop shutting down our nuclear power plants like Indian Point. That's a disaster.
Yeah.
And then Hochul shut down one of the gas-fired power plants that was supposed to replace it because that would not be clean. That means you're condemning people to blackouts and brownouts.
Right.
And it means people are going to die.
Our electric grid will not be able to hold
And
this.
that's
new
why
thing.
Con Ed is raising utility prices for like it's a serious thing coming up. I think it's 10% these next 3 years here, and it's a huge problem.
And you know, they're shutting down, you guys don't know this, but maybe you do know this. No new buildings are going to be allowed to have gas
Yes,
service from
that
now
was
on.
in
No
the
one
state
will
budget.
be able to cook a gourmet meal.
Right, with your electric little hot plate. That's what you're going to
No,
have to
and
do.
the poor 90 people in New York City who have coal or gas-fired pizza ovens.
Right. Oh, yeah.
We spoke about that,
we
Heshy,
spoke
last
about
month,
that.
yep.
It's just that's what they're after. It's not even
Right.
that. The Jews can only cook their matzahs in a special oven. They just come after stupid stuff like this when we have serious issues, serious
Like
problems.
try the Canadian forest
Yeah.
fires. I mean, how much damage did that do to the air here?
Right.
And I hear it's even in other places across the country. I know somebody in California, they're going through the same thing, and it's a problem of where you're going into your body of 100 members, and most of these senators, really aren't going back to the original point of the people's business.
Right.
And that's why, we need somebody. We have someone like your now new opponent in Mrs. Gillibrand, who was a Congress member and has been a senator, and she just goes on and just has done nothing to help the lives of the people here.
Has
Nothing.
done nothing.
Nothing. She's just a partisan
Right.
lapdog. That's all she is.
Well, she's made a lot of money for British aerospace.
Well, her husband's and her family are very connected. I believe it was the father that was connected as a lobbyist or something like that. Or
Her father-in-law, her husband's
Yeah.
British.
Yeah.
And his father, for a brief time, was actually like vice president of British Aerospace, but his whole family works for them.
I want to ask you a question. Again, this might be a little upsetting, but student loans.
Yeah.
Billions and billions of dollars. Your Senate, your president. Yes, no, maybe. What's your deal?
Biden's plan is a fraud.
Thank you.
He wants to use the students as a pass-through to bail out Wall Street. So he says we're going to pay your debt, and that just means they're bailing out the same bankers they've been bailing out.
Right.
I think that tuition is outrageously overinflated, and that again has to do with Wall Street and what these shareholders have done. I actually think that state colleges should offer free tuition for in-state students. We don't gain anything by having stupid people in the country.
Correct.
Well, we have a $200+ billion budget. We can certainly afford it. There is that point to be
Right.
made.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll give you an example, which I was blown away. I didn't realize this until my mother passed away and someone was working on her obituary. My father, so I said we grew up in Maine. Maine didn't have a medical school, so my father went to medical school in Vermont. University of Vermont had a program. If you came from Maine, you were an in-state student.
Right.
My mother was working on her doctorate in biochemistry, and her job was as a church musician. So she's working as a church musician, supporting, I was the first child born while they were doing that, and she's putting him through medical school. The tuition is $695 a semester for medical school. This was 1962, 63.
okay.
But forget it. I mean, now it's like $50,000
Yeah.
for a semester.
When I went to college a little over 10 years ago, I think the tuition was like maybe just over like $6,000 a year when I went to school, based off like I got like, the scholarship, whatever it was, and now it'd probably be just a short amount of time, probably almost triple that. So
Exactly.
I remember in the 80s when I was doing that, like putting together $3,000 in a semester, I was crying and begging, Mommy, help me, help me.
Yeah.
Today, my son says, yeah, $15,000 for the semester, no problem, Pop, you pay it, you know what I mean? and I'm not qualified for anything, so we pay it, and it's
Yeah.
a struggle, and not a problem, but again, it should be done, and I agree. You go to college, you don't get stupid, and in-state should be allowed to get either breaks and stuff. You don't need that, to wipe out their loans or wipe out loans from people coming from other
Right.
places.
See, one thing we never take account of is the cost of not doing something.
Very good.
What is the cost to society of having stupid citizens? Probably a lot more than it would cost to ensure that they had a decent education.
So as we're coming up here close to near the last 10 minutes of the show,
That went really fast.
Because you're obviously going to be our next senator. But piggybacking off
Very
that
good.
here,
By the way, Lenny wants to talk on the show. He wants to ask something.
2-minute rule. We got
2-minute rule. We got it.
rule.
We'll put him on at the end.
Okay.
What are the 3 issues that are most important to you when you get elected?
Right.
Nuclear war, if we haven't got out of this mess, absolutely number 1. We have to be alive to solve anything else. 2 is the economy. We have to stop the hyperinflation by stopping these inflationary bailouts and investing in things that generate real physical growth. 3 is the culture and what's happening to our children in the schools. Those are the 3
It's crazy.
biggest issues.
We talk about it all the time.
We talk about you're coming into our religious schools and you're teaching us this gender stuff. Again, I'm not fighting with you being gay. I don't even want to care if you want to be transgender. But again, male, female, and leave our kids out of it. We'll teach them. The parents will teach them. The grown up, it's not made to be brought into school. I believe in separation of state and church. I do believe in that 100%. But I still believe that schools should teach something of the religion or allow for you to express religion, not to make us atheists altogether. It's crazy.
It also goes back to how the idea of family, the nuclear family, has been destroyed in this country.
Right.
Think about that for a second.
Okay, I can't force you to say anything like that.
Well, what would be so harmful about silent prayer?
Right. That you each pray to your own God, your own way, and I have no problem with that. Remember, this country was founded under Christian religion. This country, the Constitution, Miss right over there, the papers, you know that. That's what we were here for, God to watch us, and we have the right to pursuit of happiness and our own religion.
Absolutely.
And we're not being taught that and not being allowed that. Anyways, Lenny, go ahead. Lenny, you're on the air, Lenny. Go ahead. Here you go, Diane. Diane, be ready. Buckle up, sweetheart.
Okay.
Hello?
I just thought we were going to talk about the migrants today. I wanted to know where we're going to get all this money for them.
Diane is right here. She's going to give the money to the migrants.
Well, yeah, but I don't want no disrespect to her, but I don't want somebody to shovel stuff on me. The mayor of this city settled 3 major contracts with the police, who they deserve the money, the school safety agents, and the teachers. So now you got all these migrants, 95,000 of them. They're sleeping on the streets, peeing in the streets. In New York City, we're looking like a third world country. And what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? The indictment of Donald Trump, this senile old man is letting all these people in our country.
Right.
Tell me, what's going on?
Well, you have to get at this from the top, and it is these cartels, which are Wall Street, and the Biden crime family absolutely is in the middle of it. I don't know how. We got to get an investigation of that.
But it's too late now, Dan. Now what are you going to do?
Everybody talks about it. I don't mean to talk over you, but everybody talks about it. They're in Staten Island, they're in Queens, they're in Manhattan on the streets, peeing in the streets. We are now.
Well,
we're like
here's the
India.
thing. One
No
is
disrespect to any other country, but it's disgusting.
right. We have to stop the open border policy immediately. We have to end that.
But who are we? Who are we? Please tell me.
The government
we?
of the United
Who are
States, if I'm in the U.S. Senate. And frankly, then people should be out in the streets peacefully demonstrating. You should surround Chuck Schumer's office and Gillibrand's office and go down to the White House.
Everybody wants to talk about the crime that's going in. Earlier, you said the Walgreens and this, that, and everything. Does anybody talk about the United States retired Marine on the train that actually did something, and then Alvin Bragg arrested him? Okay? What kind of society are we living in?
Very good, Lenny. Lenny, give her a break.
People going to stand up.
Lenny, give her a break. And also, Diane, thank you. Lenny,
We'll see you next week, Lenny.
Lenny, thank you, Lenny. Diane, while he was going with that, what did you think about cashless bail? Your personal opinion. I know you can't do nothing in the Senate.
I had many people who, right, it's not my policy. But remember, I had many colleagues besides LaRouche who were rounded up and sent to prison And it's clear that you shouldn't have a system that allows people to commit absolutely hideous crimes. And if they can just come up with the money, they're out on the street. And people who are poor, who do minor crimes, don't get. That was the rationale. Clearly, what they're doing is not that.
Right.
Because people are committing violent crimes. They're back out on the street, shoplifting, and so on. It's like a revolving door for them. And look, we have a weaponization of our entire Department of Justice. This indictment, what is it, the third indictment of Trump? I'm
Yeah, the
losing
third one?
track.
Third one, yep.
It's obvious to everyone that it's politically motivated because everyone knows.
And we just stand by like dumbbells when we should be protesting and screaming and hollering.
We have
Yes.
2 minutes. So where can people find you? Again, one more time. And
Thank you.
anything you want to say to the audience out there so they can get involved and
Thank
connect
you.
with your
Yes,
candidacy.
Sare for Senate, SAREFOR Senate.com. Please sign up on my website. Yes, please donate.
I
The
signed
campaign
up.
needs
I
funds.
signed up.
Great, thank you. And people should come out on Sunday to the UN at 1 o'clock. Stop complaining.
47th Street and
First Avenue.
First Avenue.
Exactly. Sunday, 1 p.m. Be there. Because the reason we have these wars, the reason we're at the risk of nuclear wars, we have a bunch of senile people running our government, senile and evil, and because of a bankrupt financial system that has to be put out of its misery.
Diane, thank you for your time. As you know, she's running for Senate. I support her. I thank her for her courage and her service. And I'm going to be praying for you every single day. And thank you for the audience for tuning in. Don't forget to come back next week, Wednesday, at 9 o'clock. Thank you all the people from all the radio shows.
With Larry Sharp also.
Next week,
good.
who do we have on?
Larry Sharp, who ran for governor on the Libertarian line in 2018, also tried 2022 as well. So
He'll be here. He's very interesting.
he's going to be, I think it would be just as good as, almost as
Great.
good as Diane. So definitely, we'll look
That's
forward
a
to
cat
that.
of mine.
And,
I like
and I want
Larry.
to say hello to my friend Anthony Finkel, who's tuned in, by the way.
Hello, Anthony Finkel.
Yeah.
Everybody, let's play the music. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you to all your audiences out there. Come on back next week. And we don't know, Susan's sitting there in the corner quietly. I don't know. You're the best.